We are back live. Thank you for joining us. So if we have over 36,000 Americans die every year from the regular run-of-the-mill flu, out of nowhere comes this engineered super flu. Doesn't have super bad kill rates. It just spreads super fast. And they say it could potentially mutate into the mega death. I mean, if 40 million were killed by the 1918 Spanish flu, different headlines say this could kill hundreds of millions, even billions. I don't know if that's true. All we know is the World Health Organization, just calmly out in the open, admits that governments are releasing flu viruses on purpose. Now, remember what happened in trials in Europe just this year. A whole bunch of homeless people were killed in flu trials, and people have gone to jail for that, but not the pharmaceutical companies that hired city officials to administer it to homeless. In fact, let's just do that for people watching and listening in case they doubt. Just search engine, homeless die in flu trials. And they gave it to 100 at one clinic and 23 died. We'll show you that headline. London Telegraph, BBC, AP, you name it. Now, then Baxter Pharmaceutical mixes weaponized bird flu that has a 90+% kill rate in humans with vaccines. By the grace of God, a vaccine distributor tests it, finds it, when it was still in the larger vaccine preparations, hadn't been put into single-use vials yet. Now, you add that now with all this talk of martial law and the government saying, get ready for martial law and flu's coming and it's going to be this big crisis. And suddenly you have Congressman Brown and Congressman Paul and former Republican leader Dick Armey is in the Dallas Morning News 2 weeks ago saying they may use the flu as a controlled crisis, a stage crisis, to pass health care reform. And then you have this, Bloomberg today. Obama may need sense of crisis to revive health care overhaul. President Barack Obama returns to Washington next week in search of one thing that can revive his health care overhaul, a sense of crisis. And guess what? That sense of crisis could be the flu. Facing polls showing a drop in his approval, diminished support from independents, factors within his own Democratic Party and factions, and a united Republican opposition, Obama must recapture the sense of urgency that led to the passage of the economic rescue package in February, analysts said. And they say, what is that crisis going to be? And then here's the big news from Marcola.com, naturalnews.com. We have all these stories posted up at Infowars.com right now with direct links to the World Health Organization. That's the United Nations. That's the private corporate holding company that is carrying out the eugenics medical tyranny. Who admits to releasing pandemic virus into population via mock-up vaccines? The document on the WHO website, linked below, states that it is common procedure to release pandemic viruses into the population in order to get a jump ahead of the real pandemic, so as to fast-track the vaccine for when it is needed. In Europe, some manufacturers have conducted advanced studies using so-called mock-up vaccine. Mock-up vaccines contain an active ingredient for an influenza virus that has not circulated recently in human populations and thus mimics the novelty of the pandemic virus. And right before all this broke out in Mexico City, they were doing these inoculation trials. According to the World Health Organization, such advanced studies can greatly expedite regulatory approval, sources said. And I remember having guests on who went to the Norvitis. In fact, it was Dr. Lynn Horowitz was the main one, and went and showed Baxter and a couple other companies. And he mentioned their own patents in 97, 98, 99, where they were talking about releasing simulants. And he went wild on air. He was one of the guests saying these may be simulants already released because their documents said it. Well, now here's the WHO saying it's been done. So there needs to be an investigation. Who did this? Did it cause the deaths? What's in the vaccine? I mean, folks, this is staring you in the face. And I heard a talk show host last night, Kenny Romeyer, I was listening to a show, mention that he was watching one of those, I think it was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or whatever, where the person calls in, you have the lifelines, and they ask the people, how many U.S. senators are there? And no one can answer it. And then the person called their lifeline, and they didn't know. In fact, cue up Miss South Carolina for me. Folks, Miss South Carolina is what the general public's like. Listen, you better get as informed about the history of biological weapons and governments releasing them on people. You better get as informed about eugenics and eugenical systems as you are about applying makeup or acting tough or going to the gym or driving a big truck with big tires. I don't care if you wear cowboy hats, have big tires, have tattoos. I don't care. I don't care if you're a yuppie who wears sweaters tied, in a knot around their neck. I don't care. What I care about is that you're experts in all of that, but not experts in the real world. And the host made a good point. I mean, what has become of this country? Most people don't know the three branches of government. Nothing. They don't understand that the Pentagon admits, and Dick Cheney wrote, even the Austin American Statesman decried this to their credit, in 2001, that he wanted to release race-specific bioweapons. You know what a race-specific bioweapon is? It's more important than your hair falling out. It's more important than the UT Longhorns won last night and what Mac Brown says. And I'm not saying it isn't important to care about Mac Brown and the Longhorns. Fine. You're supposed to have a good time in life sometimes. But you're supposed to also know that foreign banks stole $23.7 trillion and want to fully bankrupt the country and want an excuse to bring in martial law. And they may do it with this flu situation unless we get the word out and warn them. Play Miss South Carolina. Here is this moron.
Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future for our children.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
And you watch those shows, maybe 60% of those women are just like that. They don't know what planet they're on. They're all obsessed with their lips and their skin instead of walking out at night and going, last night I walked outside at 9 o'clock outside the studio, giant red moon right on the horizon. I was just stunned by the beauty of the universe and the clouds and just everything. And meanwhile, most people are looking down in the dirt. They're insecure. Madison Avenue's made them feel like they're worthless. They don't know anything about the real world, the beauty of the world, much less all the wicked things that are threatening our free society and all the good things in life. Let me tell you something. The government will release a deadly flu if they feel like it and kill your kids deader than a hammer. They took over 4,000 foster kids and radiated them to death. So you better get informed about these issues. We're going to come back and explain what the simulant viruses are they're releasing, what I think's really going on, and a lot more, the indoctrination of the youth. Stay with us. I'm Alex Jones. This is the GCN Radio Network. PrisonPlanet.tv is the live point for the TV show that we simulcast in the radio.